Okay, we've got a definition of a function f, and we've got a function g, and we've got to find h of x. H is the composite function fg. So what we're after is finding fg of x. Okay, now you have examples of how to approach this in your notes. The method consists of putting in these brackets here, and then the first step is to say f of, okay, and then we're going to fill in whatever g of x is in this bracket. It's a step after that that people sometimes go wrong. The way to do it is to set up what f does to a bracket. So we know that f of x is x minus 2. Okay, so we're going to say f of, okay, a bracket equals, so it's like an x goes to x minus 2, so the answer must be bracket minus 2. Okay, but we want to find out whatever you did here, so with a g of x inside the bracket. So now you fill in this bracket here, and you fill in this bracket here. Hope that helps. Now we've got to get the inverse of that, so you have to have an h of x. So you follow that through, and we've now got to find an inverse function. So your inverse function is going to be y equals, you're going to start with y equals whatever this is in terms of x. You're going to rearrange to make x the subject of the formula, and once you've done that, okay, you're going to swap x's and y's. So you're going to be able to say that y equals, for the inverse function, the same thing with f swapped with x. All the y's in this side will be swapped into x's, and then we can call this y f inverse of x, except in your case, it's not f inverse of x, it's h inverse of x. Okay, and once again you have examples of finding that in your notes. Okay, now finding the range of h inverse. Now you can look at the expression you've got for h inverse and think about its graph and thinking about the possible outputs from that. But there's another way of doing it. It's only worth 1 mark, and the reason why it's only worth 1 mark is there is a simple way of doing it. We need to think about the range of an inverse function being the outputs we can get from the inverse, but range and domain are swapped when we go from a function to its inverse. So when it asks for the range of h inverse, it's really asking for the domain of h. So what are the possible inputs to the function h of x? Okay, and then I need to think, okay, if I think back to what h of x was, h of x was f and g combined, and x is initially fed into the function g. So if I'm thinking about a possible x I'm allowed to feed into the composite function, it's got to be able to be fed into g, and I've got the domain of g here. So that is a way of telling us what possible inputs we're allowed to g of x, and hence the inputs we're allowed for h of x, and that's going to help us with the range of h inverse of x. But remember, when you're describing the range of a function, in this case h inverse, we've got to discuss the possible values of h inverse of x, and not x or y or anything else. So make sure you describe it correctly. Quite a tricky last mark to get, and quite difficult to explain in this video. So I hope that's been some help.